eye or to the camera, life in Rhodesia can be seen to be free of the abject segregation, the apartheid of South Africa. The management no longer reserves the right of admission, and white Rhodesians feel they have made giant strides in only a few years. In the daily commerce, the diversions of life, people mix easily. This can also be seen as mere cosmetics, that it ignores the psychological and very real legislative barriers that still keep this society separate and unequal. In housing, there are just the beginning tentative steps towards integrated neighborhoods, but for the most part, urban Africans live in the so-called townships. Paternalism it may be, but the country has perhaps the best educated, best fed, healthiest population in Africa. What there is not yet for the common working man in Rhodesia is the easy opportunity to break out of a life that has been ordained for him by the color of his skin.
I think there's a growing tendency among the white children of our age to realize the hardships the African is facing. And I think this is also the case in South Africa. You've only got to consider what's been happening at the South African universities and to realize that the younger generation at any rate is realizing what the African has to put up to. And even though they can't do much about it, they're trying their hardest. Well, I'm speaking from experience because I've had the opportunity to learn with white boys, and admittedly they tended to come from the upper class, but I think they were fairly representative of the young white children in the country. It's only the parents, and this gap between parents and children is widening, but the young white kids are, making, are trying their hardest anyway to try and lessen the gap.
In many cases, the African graduate finds it difficult to get a job.
Yes, I think this is true. I think there should be a lot more done for the African from the point of view of jobs, providing for jobs, because there's a lot more of them than Europeans. And comparatively, there aren't as many jobs being provided for them. This is something which I suppose will take time. You can't do this overnight. But nonetheless, it's something that should be worked on,
Well, I'm afraid this is one of our biggest problems because there are so many millions of Africans going through school. And the problem arises where you get an educated African coming out of, say, high school with good O-levels, and there are no jobs for him. And there's so many of them that, right now there's not much we can do about it.
And yet you see, you talk to many adults and they would deny
Yes.
that this is the situation.
Well, this is only my personal opinion. But I've seen, garden boys with O-levels, sort of thing. It's really sad.
Transfer power. Going by his plan, I think he's not prepared to transfer power at all. He has said that he will keep the very instruments of power, the instruments which we would like to see transferred into our own hands. The military and the police are supposed to be the vital instruments of control. They back any government that is set up, and these he is keeping according to his plan. And we are not prepared to accept a plan like that.
You sound rather pessimistic. Do you think it will be possible to have a peaceful evolution so far as Zimbabwe, Rhodesia is concerned?
We are at war with Mr. Ian Smith's regime, and so you can't talk of a peaceful handover anymore. We are at war, and we would like a military victory.
I'd be interested myself to know a situation where those who fought on Hitler's side are being given pensions by any country. But Zimbabwe is doing that. And we have been paying millions and millions of dollars per year by way of pensions to British settlers who fought us and killed us yesterday. A moral duty we don't have at all. But because we accept that the past is gone. They served a colonial regime. They didn't serve us, these people. Most of the years for which they qualify for pension were UDI years. But we don't look at that. Britain should not provoke us into examining our relations with them. And ladies and gentlemen, if really the issue is that we happen to have British settlers here, or part of our population comprises those people Mrs. Thatcher and our government regard as her charges, and which people must therefore not ever be touched by us, because if we arrest some of them on valid basis, Britain becomes annoyed, threatens us with the... We cannot, merely because a person is of British stock, where such a person is a threat to our security, fear to arrest him, because to do so is to provoke Mrs. Thatcher and her government. My government is not made of that kind of weak steel. We have fought a war for independence. We have a right to our sovereignty. We do not accept any intimidation from any quarter, any manipulation by anybody, big or small. Zimbabwe is Zimbabwe. My government stands by its principles that in Zimbabwe we shall pursue things our own way. Can Britain lay off its hands from Zimbabwe? If they want to continue to be friends with us, we will be friends. But if they are working to dissociate themselves with us, well, we are willing that that dissociation occurs. I have had to say this because I feel terribly unhappy at the attitude the British government has been adopting on this question.